What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review. This is our weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And more recently, we have been reviewing some older stories inspired by our return to Zendikar in Zendikar Rising. So we are reviewing the Battle for Zendikar / Oath of the Gatewatch storyline. And so we, this week, are up to story number 6, Offers to the Fire by Doug Beyer. Beyer? And I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Doug. We have not had a chance to meet, but I look forward to it, hopefully some point in the future. Anyway, my quick review at the top is, this one is good. It helps a lot with big plot twists later. That now that we know them, it's less impactful to read this one.
It sets a lot of things up in this story.
Yes. And I mean, there are some good themes touched on in this one, which we will touch on in the review. But for that reason, I mean, it's just a solid story. It's a lot of Chandra. It's character development for Chandra. It's you get a good feeling for her character. So if it's something that you're not really aware of, if you started later in the stories like War of the Spark, etc., you may not really know a lot about Chandra, and this tells you a lot about her in just this one story, which I would say was not as short as last week, but was still on the shorter side of things, it felt to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess all in all, what that means to me is that my quick review is that it's worth it. I would suggest you take the time and go read it. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a good read. Like I said, it sets up a lot of things that hopefully by this point you already know what they are.
If you've been following along with the story, if you haven't, like if you're relatively new,
then you absolutely should go as far back as you can and read from there.
That's fair.
That's my recommendation. But yeah, I mean the story's good. But we'll get into it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are interested in reading the story, like we said, without us kind of spoiling for you, because we are going to go into a bit of summary, not a full summarization, so it may end up spoiling it for you. So if it is something that you do want to go read, check the description down below. You'll have a link right at the top to go and read this story. We encourage you to do that. And then, of course, we would love it if you would come back here and join us, but that is your prerogative. And then don't forget, if you want to continue on with this series as we go further in the coming weeks, the best thing for you to do, please do not forget, is subscribe and ring that bell. Yes. It helps us out a lot, but it will also help you out, as you will find out exactly when all of these videos come out in the future. So, on to the full review itself. This story, Offers to the Fire, as we said, is about Chandra. What a surprise. But also, it's about Jaya. There's a lot of discussions about Jaya Ballard. And then towards the end, there is Jace and Gideon as they continue on their journey to try to find help for the threat to Zendikar.
Right.
And Chandra is on Carol Keep, or at Carol Keep, on Regatha. This is, we know, where she first planeswalked when she left Kaladesh, and where she was able to kind of foster her pyromantic powers more at Carol Keep with the fire monks that lived there. And we learn more through this place that the keep was made as a training ground for these monks, or was inspired to be made by Jaya Ballard. They have her goggles on display. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Like a bit too much of a deal.
And they kind of try to use Jaya as like a motivating factor for Chandra a lot. Like, you could be just like Jaya. You could do all these things. And so...
She's like, I don't even know who this chick is.
Right. She knows of her, obviously. But, well, and that's the twist, which I'm gonna say the twist. I think we should talk about it.
Yeah.
So if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, I don't know how we're not gonna spoil this for you.
Yeah.
But there's a big twist that I guess comes up in Dominaria, I believe. The Dominaria stories. So I guess if you want, read this story and then go read the Dominaria stories and then come back here. That's like a lot. But yeah. I think that's your best bet, to be honest with you. So, spoiler alert for those of you that are not aware of this, if you haven't read the Dominaria stories.
I don't know. I would just skip reading the Dominaria stories.
We have those videos too.
Not as good.
We have those videos too. You could go find those and watch our reviews of those. But yeah, the big reveal is that we find out way later on.
Yeah, not in this story.
Right. That Mother Luti, who in this story we find out or we hear more about as the matriarch of Carol Keep. She's not the abbot because we know that, I have his name written down, Serenok is the abbot here. And then when Serenok passes away in this story, they want to make Chandra the new abbot. And Mother Luti is, again, sort of a matriarchal figure, which is ironic because Mother Luti is JaAR, who inspired the creation of this place, and they talk about her all the time, and they try to inspire people to be like her.
Yeah.
And she's there the whole time.
She's lying to everyone about who she is, and she's decorating the place with her stuff. It's very unsettling.
I guess she's trying to, like, foster the next generation of pyromancers to be able to take over for her. So, like, that, I guess, is,
and maybe...
noble?
Arguably, she's like... I don't want accolades, so I'm going to pretend to be someone else while, making them realize that the things that I know are important and they should aspire to be the way I am, but I won't tell them it's me, kind of thing.
And there was a bit of a throwaway reminder line in here, too, where Chandra brings up the point. She's like, well, Mother Luti is, like, aware of planeswalkers, and is the one who said that JaAR was a planeswalker. Well, I wonder how she knew that.
Yeah.
So, there were definite clues, and so if you are going back and reading this with that knowledge, there's those moments of like, I see what you did, so there's that. But at the beginning of the story, we see Chandra with Serenok, the abbot, as well as other monks trying to do these chants and these dances, seemingly like firebending style from Avatar: The Last Airbender. It really does. It seems like it's firebending. Like there's chanting along with the movements, but it's like a lot of moving and dancing and chanting and singing and stuff. And Chandra ain't having it.
Tai Chi with flames.
Yes. Yeah. And Chandra is not interested at all. She's like, this sucks. I hate it. She's super talented in terms of her pyromancy.
Yeah.
She's just not disciplined, as we come to find out later. Not that we don't know that already, but
not disciplined, and also like she's talented when it comes to fighting. She's not talented when it comes to like doing, like, if you wanna like make it akin to what soldiers do.
Okay.
She's not she's not skilled at like, whatchamacallit, when they do all the like movements of the weapon and like, you know what I'm talking about.
Do I?
Yeah.
All the movements of the weapon.
Yeah, like they just stand there and then they go like, and they say like certain stuff and they make like synchronized movements.
Okay.
With the stuff.
I kind of know what you mean.
But it's basically not for anything.
Sure.
Other than a spectacle.
Okay.
And to show that they can do it completely synchronized.
Oh, it's like showmanship. Oh, I know what you're talking about with the soldiers with the rifles, right? And they're like standing there, and then they like switch it to this shoulder. Sure.
Drill team.
Sure.
Like kind of thing.
Sure.
So she's not skilled at that, but she's skilled at actual fighting.
Right. She's able to utilize the stuff for utilitarian purposes, not for like performance.
Right.
Basically. Okay. So she's not polished with it.
Right. And she doesn't care about formalities. She cares about actually doing
results.
Important stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think them deciding to make her the abbot is reflective of that. Like they understand that despite the fact that she's less disciplined, despite the fact that she sucks at the dances, despite the fact that she sucks at remembering the words of the chants, she's a good enough fighter and in good enough control of her pyromancy for them to know that that stuff doesn't matter as much.
Well, and it seems at least it seems that the other monks that are training there also look up to her to a degree.
Yeah.
Because of her innate ability. That, you know, they can look up to her. They didn't say this word for word, but it's the idea that, like, they can look up to her because that's where I want to be. Mm-hmm. She's already where I want to be. Right. You know, even though she's sitting there and scoffing at all the lessons and hemming and hawing about having to do the work, these monks want to get to where she is. And so they do say to her, we want you to be our teacher.
Right.
And that kind of brings her out of her funk.
Yeah, because she had no real understanding of her own talent and skill. Because a lot of what they spent their time doing was the stuff that she was bad at. And she was aware that she was bad at it, and no one told her otherwise, because that would be a lie.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she didn't hear that much from her abbot and her other mentors and things like that, that she had all this talent and skill. Because they were hoping, I guess, that if they didn't tell her that she would eventually get to a point where she was good at the formalities as well.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Abbot Saranac here did often say, like, you could be the next JaAR, but put in the work, like, do these things or whatever.
He didn't say that often. Okay, this story, like, the timeline of this was like, it was like an information dump. Because it was like, okay, what's the timeline then? Because it makes it seem like all this stuff happened in, like, the span of 2 days. It was like, okay, day one, Chandra gets told finally by the abbot that she's actually an amazing student. The next day, and that same day she fights the Hellion, and the next day the abbot dies, and then she has to take up the mantle of the abbot even though she has no concept of how good she is. And then that same day Jason and Gideon come and want her to like fly off to Seagate, and it's so, like, I don't know. Well, like, maybe there's spans of time here, but they don't really give you any indication of what that is. Like, you don't get any characterization of the amount of skill that she acquires in those periods of time. Does that make sense? Sure.
I mean, I will say you're absolutely right. The fighting the Hellion to being woken up to be told that the abbot is dead, there is a line. There were more lines in this story, like lines, not like a line of text, a line of text, a line of text, but like a physical line delineating a passage of time or a change in perspective. That's how these stories, at least in this era, do that.
Right.
Nowadays, when they were back when we were with the novels, less than a year ago or a little over a year ago, it was by chapter, right? And you would have it delineated that way. Now you have just the lines across because it's a short story. So for this, they had a passage of time. And so that line represents a period of time that they don't tell us about.
Right.
And so
the thing about that is sometimes, or I should say most of the time, when that occurs in the story, your mind fills in the gap of an approximation of the period of time that goes by. And I feel like mine didn't do that for this.
Sure, well, I was going to say...
it felt like one just continuous happening.
And again, that's definitely possible. The one line... Because the thing is, there was one moment where, like, Jace and Gideon are talking to Chandra, and there's, like, a line delineating a passage of time, and it had to have been 30 seconds, right? Where they, like, walked from one place to the other or whatever. And so it was a passage of time, but like 30 seconds. Because they didn't write the line, they walked down the hall and into this other room or whatever. Like, that moment was very short. But the moment between...
It was just a cut to the scene where, we were just talking about what we were doing and now we're doing it.
Right. But the moment between the Hellion fight and the abbot is dead, or her finding out that the abbot is dead, that was a question mark length of time. It could have been, as you said, it could have been the next morning. It could have been a month. The abbot himself had said, he was kind of aware, my time is coming, and Chandra notes that he's looking frail and ill and etc. So we don't know. We don't know how long that is or how long that's been. But I'll give you that was a bit confusing because of the number of delineations that were put in this particular story compared to others in the past. Whereas, like I said, one towards the end was seconds, and this one was a question mark, but could have been months. It could have been months of time.
Yeah, and there was no indication in the words whatsoever.
Sure.
To give you any clue as to about how long
Sure.
it was.
I hadn't seen that as much of a problem, but now pressed on it, I couldn't answer your question, so that's fair.
Especially when the later one was such a short period of time.
Very
it's
short.
Like they need to have some bit of consistency.
Sure.
Otherwise, they shouldn't all exist in the same story.
Right.
Like if it's around the same period of time each time, then great. But it can't be 3 months and then 3 minutes, because that screws with the timeline in your mind as you're reading it.
Yeah, I agree. One of the thing that I personally loved the most about this story, and I'm a little biased when it comes to this in terms of why I enjoyed this moment or set of moments more than any other, was when Chandra finds out that the abbot is dead. Mother Luti comes and wakes her up. It's midday. She says something to the effect of Chandra could swear that this is what some people call mourning, right? And not M-O-U-R. She hasn't found out he's dead yet. Mourning as in sunrise, morning, right. Birds chirping, etc. And right. And she makes some kind of a comment of well, my eyelids being closed really makes it seem like it's sleeping time.
Right.
And Mother Luti's it's the abbot. And she's like, all right, well, if Saranac wants me to do this, tell him I'll do it later. And it's no, he's dead. And then Chandra has that moment of,
oh, fuck.
And it truly is stopping dead in her tracks, for lack of a better phrase. She's not joking anymore. She's completely serious. She jolts up out of bed. She knows now. And she's rightfully upset.
Yeah.
And she has a range of emotions. And one of the first things that she does is she leaves. And I don't mean she planeswalks away. She just gets up and walks away into the mountains or whatever to have herself a good hard think. She talks about her grief. Internally talks about her grief. She talks about her regrets. She talks about her feelings, her emotions, etc. I loved that because that was super well done. So shout outs to Doug for writing this story in this way. It was really well done in terms of her feelings. She regrets not paying more attention in the lessons. She regrets not paying more attention to him, to Saranac. He's gone now. She felt like I guess she felt like she had more time.
Right.
And
you always do.
You don't have to tell me. I get that very much. So again, that's why I say I may be biased when it comes to this. That feeling it sucks. It sucks a lot. And she says that she feels like she should be more upset. Or she felt like she would have been more upset. Except, but also feels like it's something that's waiting to creep up on her.
Right.
All of that's so real.
Always happens.
All of that is so real. And you'll get hit with it in the moment you least expect it. It will not be a convenient moment for you to have that experience at all. And you're going to have to deal with it.
You know what? Sometimes it's the perfect moment.
Sure.
But it being the perfect moment doesn't mean convenient. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not convenient.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the perfect moment.
Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed that part of this story. It was short. It was, if it's not something you're really keyed into, if you're like, yeah, she's sad, moving on, you might skip right over it. But I really honed in on that section.
Yeah.
Because that meant a lot to me. Because it felt so real to life, or true to life. So, like I said, shout outs to Doug. That was super, super well done. If you want to go read that section, I encourage you. It was very, very good. And then after her time of quiet reflection, she comes back. Right? She doesn't run away forever. She doesn't planeswalk away and never come back to the plane again. She thinks. She feels. She processes. And then she returns. And then when she returns is when she finds out, no, we've named a new abbot, it's you.
Right.
And that's
like,
when...
Shit, what the hell?
Well, and she... But again, super pertinent, because she just finished going through all of the, I should have done this.
Yeah.
I didn't do this, but I should have. I should have paid more attention in the lessons. I should have done this more. I should have done that more. And you didn't, Chandra. And you feel bad about that. And yet now people are looking to you to take the place of this man whom you respected so thoroughly and truly felt that she didn't give him the respect he deserved.
Yeah.
In not paying enough attention to his lessons or not taking them seriously enough or whatever.
Not showing it even though she felt it or whatever.
Right. And just the idea as human beings that a lot of times, unfortunately, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of people walk around with a lot of regrets of things they wish they'd said, things they wish they'd done. I'll bring it down slightly even further. For just a moment. Whether you live here in the United States, it is irrelevant. Whether you live outside of the country, we are in a time right now. And there have been a lot of deaths all over the world during this time. And so, as many people much better than I have said, and I will echo it fully, take the time to tell the people that you love them. It's super important because when they're gone, you can say it to them in their afterlife, if that's something that you believe in, but that's not saying it to them. You don't get to see the look on their face. Just say the words. If you know that they mean something to you and you know that you mean something to them, say it. Say them. It costs you nothing, and to see the look on their face is such a big reward. And if that leads to a further conversation, awesome. If that's the end of it, that's fine too. Whatever it's meant to be. But if you'll take some advice from this guy, from us, don't leave anything unsaid. It feels so good to know that you always said how you felt, and to have maybe one less regret. I don't know that it's possible to just not have regrets at all. But you'll have one less, and that'll feel a lot better. So that's my soapbox moment, my bringing it down moment. Apologies, but also it's important to me. It's important to us.
There are definitely some people that I've had in my life who have passed, who I don't feel like there's something else I should have done or said.
Okay.
Or at least I don't feel like I could have,
sure.
Or would have had the opportunity to, or anything, and that comes from losing people when you're a kid, I had fun with this person when I got to spend time with this person, and then they passed away, and I didn't get to have more fun with this person, but, I didn't do anything that I regret
Sure.
with this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so maybe it's more of an adult thing. Like as you become an adult and you lose people that you're close with or even semi-close with, that's where you feel like, oh man, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. Yeah, you're right. It may not be as much for younger
Well, and I
people,
think it's people who you have a more complex relationship with.
correct.
So I was somewhat close to these people in my life because they took better care of me than my parents did. But that doesn't mean that I had a complex relationship with them because I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them.
Right.
That relationship didn't get to form really in a more complex way. And that's something that I would regret had it been my fault, but it wasn't.
Sure.
You know, I can sit here and say that it really sucks, but it's not a regret.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and I mean, this story is a lot of things combined together for Chandra, where she's feeling that loss, that grief, that regret, and it's followed up by probably some degree of what's the words I'm looking for? It's that thing that I feel all the time. Oh God, where you might know this, so you can help me out because I apologize. Where you feel like even if you have the skill, you just still feel like you don't, or you feel like you don't belong.
Imposter syndrome?
Thank you, imposter syndrome. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, it feels like Chandra has that to a degree. Like she's super talented, but at the same time she's like, I can't teach people, I can't do all of that. Yeah. And yet all of the monks and Mother Luti are looking at her and they're like, no, you can, we want you to. And she's like, but I can't, I'm not good enough, right? So just fighting it tooth and nail, like
having skills and having talents are two different things, right? She's got the talent maybe, but she doesn't feel like she has the skill.
Right.
And teaching is also its own skill.
Agreed.
That she also doesn't
have. Agreed.
So
absolutely.
I can definitely understand where she's coming from on this one.
And so right as the thing that sucks for her is she goes through all of this, and right at the moment where she kind of goes from grief and regret to like a bit of acceptance, not necessarily of the death, but possibly, but also of accepting this position, possibly actually stepping into this role and taking this position as a mentor to so many. And Jason Gideon show up. Like right at that moment where she's literally processing all of these different things, and now Jason Gideon are there. Which was super well done, I think, for when they were to show up. Because we know that Chandra eventually helps, but not at the beginning. Why? Because she said to them, you have the worst timing. Yeah. And it's true. And she was processing a lot of stuff when they walked in and they were like, we need your help.
Well, and that's why I said it felt like very rushed. Because her grieving process had to be rushed.
Yeah. Because they were like, we need you now. Yeah. So
I'm gonna say it even though you probably don't want me to, but I made a joke when he talked about when you read the part where Jason Gideon were like walking into the story essentially. And I made a joke that they just like came in and just like took a dump, but it's funny that you just said what you just said, because it really kind of was like
all of her thoughts and her processes, and they came and crapped all over it.
Like she had so much going on, and they just showed up out of nowhere and just stomped right on it.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and it may very well be why she reacted the way she did. She was just so overwhelmed by everything that was going on, and she was just like, just get out of here.
Right.
Leave.
Like, I can't deal with your
Go
shit
away.
too now.
Yeah. Even though Jace's points, Gideon's points, were probably pretty damn compelling.
Yeah.
But because of what had because of what had just happened to her, they weren't.
Right.
You know, she couldn't have that one more thing piled on. Chandra, as we know,
it was already too much before they showed up.
Right. Well, Chandra, as we know, is not known for her patience and ability to focus on a lot of different things at once. She's, you know, very fly off the handle type, and that gets better over time.
Yeah, I would argue that means that she focuses on too many things at once.
Sure, that's fair, and just gets overwhelmed. Yeah, that's fair.
Instead of focusing on the thing that is of priority.
Right. And there were, I will say, as we talk about with these older stories pretty often, there was a good, funny moment in this. And again, it kind of shows her frustration a bit, yet her sarcastic side, like it's really good Chandra characterization, just like, delicious. Where the boys come in and they say, you know, Gideon says, you know, Chandra, we need you. Zendikar needs you. And Chandra turns around and says, Zendikar said that? Is that a direct quote? Which, for two reasons I find that funny. One, because, no, of course not. But secondly, because Nissa talks to Zendikar, so later on it may in fact be a direct quote, but not for this.
And you know what? If she was asking Nissa that, she might have actually meant it.
Yeah, it would not be sarcastic. And of course, sarcasm doesn't come through in written text unless it's, you know, like she said sarcastically.
Unless you understand it,
Which is how I read that this way. Is that a direct quote? You know, that kind of thing. Like, no, it's obviously not. But, so, and she just kicks them out. She's like, leave.
And I love that she says that to the two of them. Like, the guys who probably don't use sarcasm or understand it even.
Well, and you know what I did appreciate, though, a good bit of, there were a couple of bits towards the end where because it's being told from Chandra's perspective, I assume that Jace was reading her mind a bit. Mm-hmm. Not heavily, but like surface thoughts, and I can very much understand the fact that Chandra's brain may not be the quietest thing in the world for Jace, where like if he's trying to read her surface thoughts, he's like getting punched in the head, you know, over and over again by like, oh God, that's so loud, Chandra, could you like not think so loud?
Not think so much.
There's just so much going on in her head. But there was the one moment that stands out to me is when Chandra like says something and Gideon tries to convince her otherwise, and Jace is just like, Gideon, I think it's time for us to go.
Yeah,
right? Like he's like it's
not our welcome. It's time to go.
Yeah. And that's great. That's so good for Jace as well.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying I read her mind. She's not saying I think he read my mind. She's just happy they're leaving her alone because that's what she needs.
And hopefully he did read her mind, because he's definitely not the type of person who is intuitive.
Yeah, he's a little too self-centered for that now. Yeah. That's fair.
I think he doesn't care enough about other people's feelings and thoughts.
Presently, sure.
In order to be able to be that intuitive and empathetic.
Yeah.
And, you know, come to that realization without being told.
Yeah. And then again, that nice Easter egg moment at the end for those of us that know what happens later. So spoilers again if you skipped ahead, I guess. This will probably be the last time. But Chandra looks past the boys as they planeswalk away, and Mother Luti is directly behind them. Far in the distance, but directly behind them, holding the abbot's robes.
Expectantly.
Yes.
Like,
and Chandra and Chandra sees that and kind of nods to her like
she's like, "Yo,
say like
I'll do that now."
Yeah. But interesting, because again, back in this time, as opposed to now where friggin' every person on every plane is like, "Oh, so planeswalkers exist, right?" Anyway,
that wasn't a thing.
Right. With this one, that's odd. Like, I understand that Mother Luti knows about planeswalkers. That doesn't mean she's seen people planeswalk.
Right.
It doesn't mean that she could just watch two people planeswalk and she'd just be like, oh, okay, whatever. I guess they left now.
Yeah. Normal.
Yeah. So,
it ain't.
Right. But if she is who we know she is,
Right.
it shouldn't surprise her. And she's just sitting there with the robe like, come on, next step, let's go. Time for me to train you more.
You were doing it,
Yeah.
now you are.
Yeah. So, but that was a really cool way to end it. I liked it. Again, this was a pretty good story.
Yeah.
So this, as I said, this is story number 6. We will be back next week with number 7 because we're going to keep rolling on. I know that the holidays are coming up. Next week for us here in the States is Thanksgiving on Thursday. That does not mean there will not be a JaAR. There will still be one because we can record them early. It's not like we got to wait for the story to come out.
Yeah.
So we will.
So nice.
Yes. So we will definitely still have a JaAR. If you are not aware, we stream every Monday and Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on this channel. So we encourage you to come join us for that. Hop in the comments or in the chat and talk with us. We will be reading the chat and responding to everybody. We always do. So if you've got things that you want to say in relation to any of the videos that we make, or just to ask us how we're doing, tell us how you're doing, any and all of those things, we would love to hear from you as always there, or in the comments below of this video, because that's probably the most obvious place to leave discussions about this particular story, because then you can join in with your fellow commenters and us in showing off our collective
#Vorthos Pride.
That's right. I shortened it a lot this week. I usually have this whole build-up. I'm so proud of myself. Anyway.
Have we decided, or do we need to tell them to stay tuned to find out whether we will be streaming?
We are always we will definitely be streaming.
Okay.
Yes, at least for Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, so a week and a day from when this video goes out, we will be streaming. We're going to have to do some fancy footwork for how we are spending the holiday, and hopefully everyone out there who is planning to do so is going to be doing so safely, continuing to stay safe and happy and healthy. That's like as close to a demand as I can get, but it's because we care about each and every one of you, and we care about your families and your friends, because we know you care about your family and your friends and yourself, and you should if you don't. So we care about all of you, and we want you to stay safe, and we want to make sure that all of you are joining your families in staying safe. Yeah. So however you are celebrating this holiday, if you are on your own, we hope that you will be able to watch some of our videos and spend the holiday with us if you have to.
Or something different. Whatever's going to make you feel most at home.
Yeah.
And safe and happy and healthy.
As always. That's especially these days, but always that is the most important thing.
Get some comfort food. Make a lot of it. And eat it all.
Yeah. Take that diet and just crumple it up and throw it away for a day if you have to.
Yeah.
But whatever you need to do to support yourselves during this time, to support your loved ones during this time, do that in the safest way possible. But we will be back next week. We'll be back on the day that this video comes out. We'll be back tomorrow for our stream, 8 to 10 p.m. We haven't announced what that is yet, but tune in for video games. Every Monday is when we play Arena. We did some Kaladesh Remastered. We actually did pretty damn well in Kaladesh Remastered. We did a sealed event in the last stream that took us the full 2 hours, which means we went 5-3, I think, in that, out of 7 possible wins. So that was great. I appreciated
too. The games were nice and long.
It was a nice return back to that format. It was nice to see.
Yeah.
So I encourage you all to
interesting fights. It wasn't this. Oh, you have this bomb thing now? Okay, well, I guess I'm dead. It was more evenly matched than what we've been seeing of late. Yeah,
a lot of back and forth. We'll be back into that on Monday again, so we encourage you to join us. We would love it if you would join us, if that is something that you are into. And like I said, Fridays for video game content still here on this channel.
Yes.
Again, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, and you'll get notifications whenever we go live and whenever a new video gets posted. You can also check out our other channels and series. Everything that you will need is down in the description box below, along with the link to read this story if that is something that you are interested in doing.
And Video Games for All is where you will find the VODs of the streams.
The Friday streams.
The Friday streams that are on this channel, the VODs will happen on Video Games for All.
And they are usually up.
Check it out.
They're usually up by Saturday, Friday night. something like that, because we now have a new series on that channel coming out on Sundays of us playing Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, Dad Rector's Cut.
I love it.
Such a great game. We had a great time, and we hope you enjoy watching
fun.
it. Yeah, good times. So definitely check that out. We will hopefully see you all next week. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.